Welcome to the Woman Worriers podcast, where we're working to help you call a truce with your anxiety. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here's your host, Elizabeth Cush, LCPC.
Welcome back to the Woman Worriers podcast. I'm excited to have y'all back. Thanks again to the subscribers, reviewers. If you have not subscribed, please do so, or if you feel like it, and leave an honest review and a rating. I would love that. I would fully appreciate it. This week, my guest is Nicole Liloia, who provides strategy plus mentorship to women business owners who want to scale through multiple income streams and move from being an employee in their own business to a boss. She founded her first business, a therapy private practice, in 2014 after suffering severe burnout in the nonprofit world. She refused to ever return to a 9-to-5. She quickly built up multiple businesses and income streams and now helps other women do the same. Nicole got her master's in social work at Columbia University and has written for Forbes, Huffington Post, and Mind Body Green. She's obsessed with entrepreneurship, women becoming wealthy, apothic wine, and never misses a Taco Tuesday. Nicole and I are going to be exploring boundary setting in your personal and your working world life. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. Let's get to it. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the Woman Worriers podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to have you and excited to be talking about personal and professional boundaries. But before we get started, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about you and what inspired you to do the work that you do.
Yes. So I actually have had an interesting change of career, although it all feels connected. I started out as a social worker. I got my master's in social work at Columbia in New York City, and I worked counseling kids for a few years. And then I transitioned into private practice. I took some time off to travel. I had severe burnout working in the field and just kind of working in the bureaucratic setup of an agency.
Yeah.
And I took some time to travel and volunteer. And when I came back, I just was like, oh my God, I cannot do a 9-to-5 job. I thought I was just lazy, really. I was just it's so hard and seems like so much work, and I hate it. So I ended up starting a private practice eventually, and sort of I ended up truthfully being a sort of therapist freelancer. I had contract work. I did consulting for an organization. And then I started my private practice. So I kind of had all these different income streams, and it was a lot of fun. And it turned out I didn't dislike work. I like the structure and setup and the poor boundaries at the 9-to-5 job. So I did that for a few years and went into was growing my practice and ended up kind of just transitioning into more coaching and business strategy with a lot of therapists, a lot of people in the health and wellness world, a lot of service providers. It just turned out that I was really good at helping people set goals, helping them set the structure and boundaries to make them happen, helping them really grow their business. And I was doing my practice at the same time, working with a lot of highly anxious, stressed out women, live right outside New York City. So truthfully, it's quite trendy to be stressed out.
So sad that it's trendy to be stressed out, right?
Right. A night out, to hang out with your friends is all about complaining who's the most stressed out.
Yeah, I get it. And I feel like being stressed out has sort of become normal for our culture, but that's terrible.
I know. It really is terrible. And I think that truthfully, it just is, you're trying so hard to keep up. And it really is hard because I think we're just overwhelmed in so many areas of life. I love that now that I do the business strategy. I thought it was going to be just a strategy piece, but it turns out it is a lot of mindset. It is a lot of strategy.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of offering support in the same areas that I did before, but just with a little bit more of a business focus.
Mm-hmm. And so do you work primarily with women, or do you have a sort of a mixed, just men and women in your practice, in your consulting business?
Yeah, I do work primarily with women.
Yeah. And do you feel like women maybe have a little bit of harder time setting boundaries around whatever it might be? Or what are you finding in your practice?
I'm finding that, it's very interesting because it's just like a lot of parallels in terms of, when I did therapy and counseling, and even now just in supporting people, around more of their business focus. And, when you have a business, it's your life too. It's all connected. And I think that's a lot for women who have careers and families. Everything is all connected. So when something's off, when you have, bad boundaries or stress in one area, I think it spills off to the other areas. And that's because we tend to be caretakers. So I think that women do struggle to set boundaries because a lot of times they view it as being mean or hurtful towards others, or they really fear the fallout.
So the fear of hurting others' feelings or not being a good enough caretaker can impact how set their boundaries are, or fluid.
Yes, and being seen as, being mean.
And so why do we need boundaries? Like what are you seeing if people have very fluid boundaries, they aren't keeping true to the boundaries they feel like there are parts of them that really need? What's happening? Well,
I think that, when we talk about boundaries, there's boundaries in all areas, right? There's boundaries, setting boundaries with people in your life, with personal and work not intersecting. There's time boundaries, there's physical space boundaries. There's all kinds of boundaries you can set. And that on its own can be really overwhelming. So it may be that in one area you feel okay setting boundaries, but in other areas you may struggle too. But what I'm seeing is that people really are getting overwhelmed because there just is, all of your different areas of life intersect. And it really becomes a struggle to go after what you want, to create the life you want, when you can't, protect your space around that desire.
I know for me, a lot of times when I am not holding firm to boundaries, so say in personal life, somebody asks me to do something that I don't really want to do, and I say yes anyway. There can be like resentment and, frustration with myself, but also with the other person, so that even though I'm offering the help, I'm not really doing it from a good place.
Right. And then there's sometimes like that lack of taking responsibility, right? Where there is that anger towards the other person, even though they may not even know, right?
Right. Yeah. And you're just holding on to this feeling of like, why is this not working well? But so, I guess I'm struggling with like, why I feel like men are better at least professional boundaries, and maybe I'm wrong. And I feel like men tend to be better at setting boundaries. And I know as caretakers, we do want to help others, women do. But are there other things you're seeing that make it harder for women to really be the boundary setter, to say, this is what I need, I'm going to go after this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's exactly like what you're saying, is that I think, first of all, there's just different expectations for women, right? Like, we are sort of raised to be caretakers. We are raised to worry about others and to kind of take on responsibility for things. I mean, I grew up with a brother, and there were definitely different expectations for us when we were younger. And there's honestly even different expectations for us as adults in terms of, family responsibilities and things like that. So I think that one, there is that piece of just nurturing by parents and society and things like that into, I don't think that women are really taught as well to set boundaries and how to enforce boundaries. I think there's different expectations for them. And then two, I think that also, a lot of us tend to be really empathetic, really in tune with other people's feelings. And a lot of times we're living in other people's heads, making a lot of assumptions about what they're going to think about us, what they're going to do, how they're going to react if we set things. And we're not really being true to ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. And I would imagine that if you kind of grew up in an environment where, you know, as a young woman, as a child, you were expected to sort of be either helping with the other siblings or helping around the house or sort of being more fluid in terms of your personal boundaries, that it would be really hard to then suddenly do it in adulthood.
Absolutely. And, you know, we see what happens with women who are stronger, who are more outspoken, who do set better boundaries for themselves, right? We see it on TV, we see it in the media, we see it all over. You know, they're not really spoken of well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can think of a few choice words that were called when we do set boundaries that are really strong.
Right. We become very unlikable is the most popular word.
Yeah. And so there's that piece too. Just culturally, it's not as acceptable for women to really be speaking their mind and saying, well, not speaking their mind, but really setting very firm boundaries around what they need or want.
Absolutely. And I do think it is connected to speaking their mind as well, right? It becomes seen as like, why are you speaking out? Why are you speaking up? You know what I mean? You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so it becomes hard for us to set boundaries for ourselves. And I think too, you know, a lot of us, especially I'm sure a lot of your audience is in heart-centered jobs, right?
Right.
Or they do have like a lot of anxiety. And I think that a lot of us too are, you know, when I was in my first job, part of the reason I got so burnt out is, you know, it was a lot of women, right? It was a lot of women and, you know, women management. And then at the very top, it was like all men.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know, like they're always in the biggest positions, right? And I think that, you know, women are uncomfortable with that. And it kind of, unfortunately, causes like a trickle down effect, right? Where if you speak up, like I was one of the people who was more likely to speak up about things that, you know, just seemed like wrong to me or unethical or, you know, why are we being forced to see so many clients in so little time? Like they do not like that. That is not, you know, because then they have to speak up. So I think there becomes a trickle down where it is like, you know, be quiet, don't cause trouble. And that sort of becomes like a, you know, I just have to kind of do what I'm told. I can't set boundaries. I can't kind of put out there what I want.
And I wonder, too, if there's some sort of worry about, you know, retribution. If I do speak up too much, then what? Like, what will people think of me and how will I be perceived and all of that kind of can keep you very quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is totally connected to the fear and the anxiety and the worrying.
Yeah. And so just guessing, being an anxious woman myself, that people who have a lot of anxiety, it might be harder for them to begin this process of setting boundaries.
Absolutely. And it's because of the overthinking and the really like kind of getting caught up in our headspace.
Oof, I can totally relate to that. So sort of thinking through like, if I set this boundary, then what if this or this or this, or how are they going to think?
Go towards the negative consequences. And, you know, it really is unfortunately because we don't always have the best models either where we've seen people set boundaries and it works out, right?
Yeah. Well, too, knowing from my own personal experience again that the idea of pushing up against someone else's boundaries by setting my own can cause me some anxiety about like, what is that going to feel like if I'm like asking for this thing and you know, there's already the expectation that I'm going to be doing this other thing. And that can be really hard. Just the physical discomfort of the anxiety that sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll just be quiet. Maybe I won't ask.
Right. I think the other thing is, you know, I think we sometimes do miss out on opportunities because we are worried about bothering people or, you know, and we don't trust other people to set boundaries too.
Right. Because we're so used to not setting them ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I saw this as a therapist. I see it now, you know, working with women around their businesses is we sort of block ourselves from opportunities because we're worried about, you know, other people and their thoughts and their things, and we're not giving them the responsibility of setting boundaries.
That's an interesting perspective there, so that we're not trusting that the people we're interacting with will have the ability to set their own boundaries if they're not comfortable with something we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And so having some faith and trust that really, if we are overstepping a boundary, that person's going to say, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea. Or,
right.
Take a little step back.
I don't have time for that. Or, you know, just like, no, you know what I mean? Like people, you know, it's okay to say no. It's okay to be clear you're not interested in something. And if people aren't saying that, you know, I work with a lot of women who just, once again, they're not putting themselves out there for opportunities that they deserve because they're worried about what other people are going to think, what other people really mean. There's just like a lot of assumptions going on.
Yeah. Well, and I would imagine too, just saying no without prefacing it or offering an explanation or giving some reason why versus like, I just don't really want to do this. But, you know, just saying no, thank you would be hard for some people, some women.
Right. And I mean, it really is just, you know, no thanks, or this isn't the right timing, you know, just something like that is totally okay to say.
Yeah. Well, and something I've encouraged clients to do who have anxiety, have struggled with creating safe boundaries for themselves, both personally and professionally, is to give themselves time to pause and think about what's being asked so that they're not just responding, okay, but like giving yourself permission to say, can I get back to you on that? So that you can think about it and sit with it and decide if it's something that feels okay for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I really do think like even just kind of setting a timer and really processing it and not, once again, like being careful with the space of the overthinking. And you think even just setting that boundary for yourself, because I think we can get so caught up in things. And once again, spend way too much time in other people's lanes, you know, in brains, in really making assumptions about what they're thinking, what they're doing when we have no clue.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so not too much time in the overthinking, but more about what do I need? What is it that
like what does this really involve? Yeah, what would this take from me? Is this something I want to do?
And I'm wondering too that when people are working with you and they're sort of gradually, you know, women are gradually beginning to create these boundaries in their lives, that there might be some pushback from the people around them.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, especially to like, you know, in your relationship, right? In your closest relationships, whether that's, you know, your family relationships, your partner, your closest friends, you know, when you're starting to do things a little differently, it can surprise people. And I think that can definitely cause some pushback. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're usually the person that's always saying yes or accommodating and then now saying, you know, I need time to whatever, work on my business or do other things.
Work on my goals, work on
my goals.
You know, work on my health, right? Like this, you even see this sometimes happen when, you know, one partner is setting new healthy habits, changing their eating habits, things like that. And the other partner has a hard time with it because it's just different, right? So I really do. And, you know, this is why so many people do come to me to work together is, you know, you get to have that objective person, that support system. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, and that's why people go to therapy too, right? Like, you know, have that person who's objective, who is, you know, kind of removed from the situation and kind of can help you assess things more clearly for yourself, because it really could be, it can be hard to do this on your own.
Yeah. Well, I was sort of, not even sort of, I was looking over your website and, I liked that you incorporate in the copy that it's not just about boundaries or working toward, you know, having support around business, but it's your personal goals too, that like taking care of yourself or whatever that means for you, your personal goals. That's just as important.
Absolutely. And I really do think like the more you know, start improvements in one area, start, enforcing boundaries in one area, start getting clear on what you want in one area, it will carry over to the others. So for people who feel overwhelmed by setting boundaries or speaking up for themselves, or, maybe just start with one area and, focus on that rather kind of than thinking about all the things you need to change in your life.
Yes. Well, something that I have come across within clients too is like when it comes to making change, they're looking at the end goal, like, and how the heck, especially if you have anxiety, how can I get from where I am now to this far distant future place? And it's like, well, you have to take one step, right? It's like one step at a time. You don't have to get to the end yet.
Right.
It's just how do we get from here to the next day? Something that I think I've struggled with, but also talking to other business owners, female business owners, when it's your own, as an entrepreneur, setting boundaries around taking time off and not working has been a struggle for me. It creates a lot of anxiety if I'm not working all the time, even like on the weekends. Like I should be doing more because I don't know what, because it's all going to fall apart if I'm not on top of it.
Right.
Do you find that in working with women?
I think that it can be really situational. So first of all, I think that if you're really like enjoying work and you're just in one of those cycles or seasons, everything's seasonal and cycles, you know what I mean? So I think there are times when, you are working a lot and it's enjoyable and fun. And I think we kind of get shamed for that sometimes. So I just think give yourself permission to do what you need to do. So if working is recharging you. For some of us it does, right? Or there are certain points where maybe we started a new project, we have a lot of enthusiasm for it. I think that it's okay to work more hours. It's okay to put more time aside to that and to protect that time for yourself. Yeah. I think that obviously, like, once again, it's really checking in with, are you feeling overworked because other people are saying you need more balance or, are talking about balance. I think it really is a personal thing in terms of finding balance. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we do need breaks, right? So, don't work 24/7, but obviously, if there are those periods where you're going to be working more, I have periods where I'm really working a lot, 60, 80 hour weeks. And then I have a long stretch where I'm working 15 to 20 hours a week. So I think really look at the nature of your business.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And I like the idea of being flexible with it, that, there will be times, like, not this hard and fast, I should only work X amount of hours per week and I need to have this amount of time off every week. It's like, well, This week maybe I'm working a little bit more, but next week I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think just notice if it is like totally ongoing, there's never breaks, right? And I think too, really give permission to check in with what you want. Try not to be influenced by others' understanding of like their work goals and what's normal or not normal.
Yeah. And so how are you helping clients sort of define what healthy boundaries are for them? How do you go about that process?
So a lot of what we do is look at people's schedules and look at people's workloads. And, part of it is helping people, for me, just kind of be more effective with work, right? I think that, especially, the people that I'm working with, like, they've not worked in their own business before. We weren't necessarily trained to work in our own business. Mm-hmm. So really looking at more of their workload and where different things are set up, how much work they're spending in different areas.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. So really finding a balance that's working for them with all the things that are happening in their life.
Yeah. And also helping them set up sort of, a schedule or system. I call it like a master schedule. Like, where are the times for certain things in your work, right? Where are you working on your different projects? Where are you spending time with clients? Where are you spending time creating content? Where is your family time? Mm-hmm. And really making sure that it's mapped out and like structured, because I think that what happens is we spend a lot of time, once again, in like the overthinking and getting decision fatigue, right? So kind of just thinking about the work and not actually working.
Yeah. Yeah. And having time set aside that this is the time I'm going to do whatever.
Right. And for people who do feel overworked, I've seen a lot of times, like what you're talking about on the weekends, it's not that it's straight work. It's a lot of time like wasted, like scrolling on Facebook. It's not, not to say that you're doing that.
Oh, no, I do that too.
For a lot of people, if we really look at the work hours we need to be putting in, it's not actually as high as we're telling ourselves. So sometimes too, it's just something as basic. And that's what I love. There is like the whole mindset piece, but there is just that like logical, strategic piece. Like actually track your work. What stories are you telling yourself about how much you're working, and are they really true?
Yes, that is such a good point. So, yeah. Well, because too, you may be, if you're telling yourself you have to work more, but you're actually putting in a lot of work, like it's okay to take time off and not work.
Absolutely. And it's also like saying, like, are you really, are you working on the things that are going to help you, or are you just wasting time on not really helpful tasks?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, oh gosh, so much time can be taken up with just like, I don't know, cleaning out your inbox.
I know for me, like writing is my biggest issue. Like I'm just like a slow writer. I overthink it. I get stuck, editing. So for me now, I just don't write as much. I do more, verbal content or videos or stuff like that. So, it really is good to really look at where are you spending time.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because if you're not loving it, it's going to take, if it's harder for you and it's not something that you're passionate about, then like don't force yourself to do that if there's an alternative.
Exactly. So there are some really, like I said, some really nice, just logical tasks you can take to really see, like, am I, is this a boundaries issue, or am I really just, is it a boundaries issue, or am I just not really, working effectively? Am I, do I do these things are they even helping me grow? Or am I just doing them just because?
Yeah, just because. I know that phrase. Yeah. Oof. So, are there resources or tips for the listeners that you feel like if they are struggling with creating boundaries or just getting a better workflow, like, are there things out there that you feel like would be important for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of just looking at some like productivity type things. I definitely share a lot of them, so they're welcome to look at my site. I think too, just really like, sometimes reading books. Like I actually like this one book by Tim Ferriss, Tools of Titans, and he kind of talks to a lot of people who are, celebrities, business owners, things like that, about what they do. And I like it because you can kind of see it's the behind the scenes of how people are effective, how they live their lives. And I'm not usually into books where it's like a lot of little summaries of things, but I like this one because you can kind of pick and choose what works for you, what appeals to you, and experiment.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And so are there things coming up in your world, your practice, that would be something that the listeners might want to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I regularly put on challenges or events where you can really focus on one area of your business. So I did one earlier in the year on, helping you scale your business, helping you be more productive and work less and still make more money. This summer, I'm going to be doing one on, how to get seen more so you can make more of that impact with your work and get out of your own way in terms of holding yourself back. So what I really recommend is to head on over to my site, NicoleLiloia.com, and grab one of my freebies, grab my Batch Like a Boss freebie. And that's actually about time management, which I think would be helpful for people who are struggling. It teaches you how to focus on one task at a time and do more of it.
Nice.
And it's sort of a good way to kind of set boundaries. Like, I'm setting boundaries, I'm going to work on this task and get it done and do a little bit more of it so I don't have to constantly worry about it. And they can grab that at NicoleLiloia.com/batchlikeaboss. And then when I have upcoming events, they'll get invitations for it.
Nice. That's awesome. All right. So people can find you also, I guess, on social media. How would they find you there?
Yes, they can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Nicole Liloia.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And, I'd love to hear, from your audience, if they can leave a comment or whatever about, what's one boundary they're going to try to set for themselves and just kind of focus on one.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, there will be, we will include, there's always opportunity to leave comments on the show notes, and I will include all of your social media links there. So we will circle back and see if people are commenting. That sounds great. All right. Well, thanks again. And thanks for being a guest.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us again on the Woman Worriers podcast. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Nicole Liloia about boundary setting in your life and why maybe it can be a little bit hard for women, but why it's really important too. That when we're not setting boundaries, it's when we're not listening to ourselves and we're not taking care of our own needs, but more worried about other people's needs. And that can create a lot of anxiety. I know it does for me. And I know for me, it takes a conscious effort to be checking in with myself around my boundaries, around when I'm saying yes or when I'm taking care of someone else's needs and not my own. So the struggle is real. It can create a lot of anxiety, but it can shift. You can change things. Things can be different. Whether you're a business owner or a stay-at-home mom or both. You can't be both. Whether you're a business owner, a stay-at-home mom, or a combination of the two, working and taking care of a household with children, our boundaries are getting crossed all the time. And if we were raised in a household where we really had to be taking care of other people, it's hard to maintain them as an adult. So know that there is help out there, and creating boundaries can help you feel more grounded and present and attuned in your own life. So if you want to know more about the podcast or want to check out other episodes, you can go to womanworriers.com. All the episodes are there. You can also check out Instagram. I post things occasionally there, often podcast related, but sometimes just inspirational. I'm also on Facebook at Woman Worriers at facebook.com. So you can find out more there. Once again, thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Ciao for now from this Woman Worrier.
Thanks for listening and subscribing to the Woman Worriers podcast. Music was written and performed by Andy Cush. If you'd like more information on this episode, you can find the show notes, the resources shared today, and links to the guests' profiles at womanworriers.com.